I'm here with some of my partners today, also Liam Lynch of NICOSH. Liam's going to talk about the World Trade Center Health Program, which, according to those in the Pentagon, is a terrible name for a health program. It should be the 9/11 Health Program, but unfortunately, that's what the government called it. But you at the Pentagon, you will learn, are entitled to the exact same benefits as the firefighters and cops who were sickened by the toxins in New York. So you'll learn about the health program. We'll talk about the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. We will try to do everything in a half hour and then leave plenty of time for some questions. I know that a bunch of you have already submitted questions to us, and we'll start probably with those. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Captain Richard Shoup of Arlington and Charles Kramarick of Arlington for helping to organize this and telling us how important it was. There is so much misinformation out there. There's so much that people don't realize. There are deadlines. So that's enough of an introduction. We're going to start with a short video. You should recognize a lot of the people in the video, and then we'll get to some slides and then some questions. So thank you.
The first responders, I'm in awe. It's your courage and your resilience that brought this place back. So please, I urge you, access what you are owed.
Over the last decade, we have all fought very hard so that everyone has access to the health care that they need. You are part of the group of people that have guaranteed health care if you have a 9/11 related disease.
So we have taken on, with all of these advocates here, the task of trying to get everyone to understand that they have rights, and it is imperative that they sign up.
One of the really surprising things about our research is that an event in 2001 can continue to have echoes 17 and 18 years later, such that it is as though never smokers are smoking 2 packs a day.
My law firm represents over 15,000 people in the 9/11 community. Every single day, we hear from more and more survivors because we're doing this outreach. You need to get 2 people to sign an affidavit attesting to the fact that I saw him. I worked next to Joe. That's all it takes. There's a reason why my firm takes all this so personally. I have 6 young people who work for me who have lost a parent or a spouse as a result of World Trade Center toxins. 9 people in my law firm, including me, are cancer survivors. The information you get from us is going to be compassionate, and it's our pleasure to help you.
So, as you heard from me in the video, the time constraints to be eligible for the World Trade Center claims and the Pentagon claims are a little bit different. Those of you who are listening today were all Pentagon responders, and you need to be able to prove that you were exposed to the jet fuel and the concrete dust for at least 4 hours between 9/11 and November 19th of 2001. That's it. 4 hours of exposure. And how do you do that? Easy. You can either get your commanding officer, if he or she is still around, or you get 2 of your coworkers, 2 of your fellow sergeants, lieutenants, anybody you worked with, 2 of your fellow firefighters. I mean, there were, we figured there were approximately 35,000 people altogether who were exposed to the fires and the dust and the smoke at the Pentagon. About 10,000 of them were military. The rest were civilians and visiting firefighters and cops. They came from so many different fire companies in Maryland and Virginia and DC. You are all eligible. But sadly, less than 5% of the Pentagon community has even applied to the health program. And the biggest reason that we hear is, oh, we heard it was called the World Trade Center Health Program. How were we supposed to know that we were eligible? And that's the purpose of today's webinar, to make sure you know your rights and you take advantage of them. All right, so Lee London, would you take us through some of the most common illnesses linked to the toxic dust at the Pentagon?
Sure, Michael, and thank you so much. As Michael was saying, you have the World Trade Center Health Program on one side, and you have the Victim Compensation Fund on the other side. Both programs we want you to register for to protect your rights. And just going into some 9/11 related conditions, skin cancer right now is the #1 condition we're getting calls about with first responders, survivors with exposure. Basal, squamous, melanoma, it takes that long for these cancers to develop. Now, prostate cancer, breast cancer. Now, the #1 question I get from my Pentagon clients is, my private doctor did not link this to my exposure. My private doctor has said maybe it's family related. There is a presumption that if you make those 4 hours, then it is caused by your exposure from the Pentagon. So as much as everyone loves their private doctors, we want to make sure that everybody is with the experts at the field at the World Trade Center Health Program, so you can be around doctors that know 9/11 exposure and be around other members that are going through the same things that you're going through. With prostate cancer, it's not the same type of prostate cancer that you would see in a normal situation. These cancers are much more aggressive and different chemo treatments don't work on them. So we want to make sure everybody protects themselves. Just like with cancers, respiratory conditions, GERD, asthma, sleep apnea, all covered conditions and all amazing at the World Trade Center Health Program for you to get evaluations for and to make sure that you have your medicals to support the diagnosis. We really want to make sure that everyone's covered because it's not about how you're feeling now, it's how you're going to feel 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The government, the Victim Compensation Fund has extended the Victim Compensation Fund and the World Trade Center Health Program till 2090 to outlive us all. So we really want you starting this process when you're healthy. So God forbid anything happens, you're protected.
Look, this is not just the guys in Arlington. These are the guys who worked at the CIA, the Coast Guard, DC Fire and Police, the airport, Homeland Security, Treasury. I mean, you can see the list, and this is just a partial list. You know who you were. Even if you just volunteered on your day off and weren't officially assigned, you're entitled to that free health care. And if you had a certified illness, the compensation. We must represent 24 FBI agents with cancer. It's really heartbreaking, but what's even worse is if people don't take advantage of their rights.
There's a very big registration deadline coming up at the end of July of 2021. That's why we are pushing this. One of the amazing things that the Special Master of the Victim Compensation Fund did is she extended this deadline till July 29th of 2021. Many of you could be part of the World Trade Center Health Program and be certified for conditions and you don't even know it. That's why we encourage everyone to register with the VCF, because if you're certified for a condition and you've been certified for longer than 2 years for a World Trade Center related physical condition and you don't register for the VCF by July 29th, 2021, you will be barred from making a claim.
The last thing anyone should want to do when you hear those horrible words from an oncologist, sir, you have cancer, that's not when you should start finding the guys you worked with 20, 30 years ago, trying to track them down because they may not be around then either.
You know, one of the things that we hear time and time again from many people is that they didn't know that they were entitled to benefits. Families don't know very often, because it's not a well-publicized thing, that they may be entitled to benefits because a loved one passed away years ago. Generally speaking, the time within which a deceased claim must be made with the VCF is 2 years. But, as Lee was saying before, the Special Master has opened a window, a very important window, which will remain open until July 29, 2021, as the slide in front of you says. If a person passed away more than 2 years ago, but because of a World Trade Center related, 9/11 related condition, their family may still bring a claim for that passing, and the family is entitled to very substantial benefits. it's so important that we get the word out to the 9/11 community that there is this deadline next July, and that if somebody passed away more than 2 years ago, this is their opportunity to come and file a claim now.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Dom, the reason I find this whole statute of limitations so infuriating is because why in the world would you ever connect the dots to your spouse's passing to something that had happened a decade earlier when you heard the air was safe? You wouldn't. So we argued to the victim compensation special master that it's not fair that you have such a strict deadline. And I give her credit. Last year, when we were in Washington and we got the Victim Compensation Fund permanently extended and fully funded, she opened up this window for anyone who had missed the deadline. So if you know anybody in North Carolina or Florida or even where you live now and they didn't apply, just make sure they know that they have rights. All right. We would be a little insensitive if we didn't address the fact that there's this incredible pandemic right now, nearly 200,000 people dead, millions afflicted, and the 9/11 community in particular is so vulnerable to the coronavirus. I mean, think about it. As you saw from the list earlier, the most common illnesses from the 9/11 community are respiratory illnesses. And if you have COPD or asthma or interstitial lung disease, if you've had one of the 68 cancers that required chemotherapy, your immune system is shot. That's why we implore you all, just be safe, be smart. If you have a pulmonary illness, if you've had chemotherapy because of your cancer, you have to be so careful.
I'm Liam Lynch. I'm with NICOSH, New York Committee for Occupational Safety and Health, and we're an advocacy group in New York City, and we work with labor unions and worker-centered organizations to really fight for healthy and safe jobs. And it's really an honor to work alongside this community and to be here today. So the World Trade Center Health Program, right? We're talking about two different programs today. We're talking about the Victim Compensation Fund, which is the financial compensation piece. And the second program is the World Trade Center Health Program. They work together, but they have separate registration and enrollment processes. And in order to file a successful VCF claim, Victim Compensation Fund claim, you have to have your conditions, your physical conditions, certified with the World Trade Center Health Program. You continue your care with your own doctors, but you have to be seen by the World Trade Center Health Program and get a medical monitoring visit for them to certify your condition to say that, yes, it is indeed related to 9/11 exposure. So the healthcare program is a medical monitoring and treatment program, which means for responders that you do not have to be sick in order to be in the program. Survivors do have to feel that they have some illness related to their exposure, but responders are automatically eligible for an annual monitoring exam. So even if you're healthy today, you feel fine, this program is for you because early detection can save lives. This is a free, no-cost program. So any medical tests, doctor visits, surgeries, prescription drugs that are related to your certified 9/11 related condition will be covered. I know that the 9/11 community is very selfless. They're always giving of their time and their energy, and they're always thinking of others, and oftentimes they don't think of themselves. And I want to say that if you opt in, your patient data can be used for extremely valuable research that will help us care for responders of disasters in the future and for this community moving forward. They are always adding conditions that can be certified in the program. You know, when I first started this work, cancer was not covered. And then because there's so many in the program and in the community that was getting cancer, they were doing research on, they covered cancer, or 68 cancers right now. So your data, your patient data is extremely valuable for that research. And you are not taking away from anybody. This program was built by and for you. And it's a national program. So you do not have to live in the New York metro area. You know, we know a lot of New Yorkers retired in Florida, and then also we have the Pentagon workers. So we have survivors and responders receiving care in every state. Last thing is that it's not just physical conditions that are covered in the healthcare program. It's mental health conditions as well. And PTSD, anxiety disorder, panic disorder is a common condition in this community. And there are really awesome therapy programs in the World Trade Center Health Program that should definitely be taken advantage of.
It's important that everybody realizes that when Congress passed this statute, they provided free health care for PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And you should definitely take advantage of that. But you don't get compensated for mental conditions. You only get compensated for physical illnesses. And the second thing that Liam made me think about is a lot of people think, oh, I signed up for the health program, so I guess I'm signed up also for the Victim Compensation Fund. No, you're not. And that's a big misconception. So please, you must sign up for both. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands that.
As Liam discussed the benefits of the World Trade Center Health Program, on the opposite side is the Victim Compensation Fund, which will provide you a monetary award for your pain and suffering. And there are a lot of different claims that we can make. One of the biggest areas that people want to join the program and go through this is because these medical conditions cost a lot to treat. And one major aspect of the Victim Compensation Fund is that if you were diagnosed with bladder cancer in 2008, spent a lot of out-of-pocket money on your medicals and not part of the program yet, the World Trade Center Health Program won't retroactively pay you back for those out-of-pocket expenses, but the Victim Compensation Fund will. So we make that claim directly to the Victim Compensation Fund, as well as a non-economic loss claim for your pain and suffering. Now, one of the biggest questions that I always get is, the Victim Compensation Fund looks at everybody differently. So you can have two people diagnosed with asthma. One person uses a nasal rinse once every 2 weeks. The other person's had 5 surgeries. So it's all based on severity. That's why you'll see below that non-life-threatening illnesses can range from 20,000 to 90,000, and it's all based on the severity of medical records. On the other hand, there are economic loss claims that we can make as well for loss of earnings. Many of my Pentagon clients who get a horrible cancer at the age of 50, they wanted to work. They wanted to work till the age of 65, but they are forced out on disability. We can make loss of earnings claims as well to the Victim Compensation Fund. Dom and Dana will talk about all the benefits that we can make for a deceased claim and wrongful death claim, because not only are you entitled to an award while you're alive, but your estate is entitled to award, God forbid you pass away. And one of the major benefits of the Victim Compensation Fund is that you never waive your future legal rights. So if you were awarded for your asthma in 2014, and then God forbid you get diagnosed with a cancer condition 5 years later, we can always amend your claim for an increased award based on change of circumstance. I can amend for economic loss as well. So that is the best thing about the Victim Compensation Fund, the fact that I can keep amending your claim and the fact that it's been extended till 2090. So we just want to make sure that the retirees that might have retired in 2007, in 2005, that they have the information necessary to take advantage of these programs.
I just want to raise 2 quick things that Lee touched on. The categories of damages that are obtainable on a deceased claim include personal injury, the same damages that Lee was talking about. If in life a person did not make a claim with the VCF, their family can still do it. And they can get that personal injury award, that pain and suffering that Lee described, or if there was loss of earnings in life, they can get that. In addition, as part of the deceased claim award, which is part 2 of the award, they can get, again, another award for pain and suffering, and they can get additional lost earnings for the period of time that their loved one was not able to continue working. And they can also get funeral expenses reimbursed, and they can get something called replacement services, an award for replacement services, meaning for the cost of replacing or performing the kinds of things around the house that their loved one used to do, perhaps taking care of the yard, perhaps making home repairs, taking care of the car, shopping, cooking, all those kinds of things, the things that we do for one another in a household. There's an award for that too. And these awards can be quite substantial.
Thank you, Dom. And what makes it even more sad right now is that more people have died of 9/11 disease than died on 9/11. And that means thousands more families who desperately need help. The reason we do this is we want them to know that there is help. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what you can do to protect your own family. Talk to your family. Make sure your family knows about the Victim Compensation Fund. Make sure your family remembers that you were there. It doesn't matter if you smoked. It doesn't matter how old you were. There is a presumption and they have a right to a claim. And make sure they understand that there are registration deadlines and there are filing requirements and that there are lawyers who can help them. They don't have to do it on their own. One of the most important things for everyone in the 9/11 community to do is to make a will. You get to choose your executor, and your executor is the person who will be entitled to bring the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund claim. So you want to choose somebody that you trust to do that, somebody that you've spoken to about the Victim Compensation Fund. That's something you have to think about. And the second reason is that some part of the award will pass through your estate. So you will have a say in where a part of the Victim Compensation Fund award goes. And you can choose where it's most needed. If you don't do it, that part of the award is going to pass by something called intestacy, and it's just going to go according to a statute that the government has. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It doesn't work for everyone. It may not be what's best for your family. And the last thing is, even if you're sick with something relatively minor, enroll in the health program, file a claim with the Victim Compensation Fund. Because if you are found eligible by the Victim Compensation Fund, that is one less hurdle that your family will have to deal with. It'll make the process so much easier for them. And lastly, talk to us. We're here whenever you have questions. You can see we're nice people and we welcome questions. We really do want to help.
Thank you, Dana. If I can just add, there was something that Lee may have touched down. If you haven't been to a dermatologist in the last year, please go for a full body skin checkup. You should do that every year. I can't tell you how many people tell me, oh, it's nothing. I didn't even think it was cancer. It was just a little basal cell nothing. Well, early detection can save your life. It prevents it from becoming a melanoma. And oh, by the way, you're entitled to $90,000. But do it for the health care. Do it to save your life. Please, I can't tell you how many people ignore this and then all of a sudden they have a melanoma and it's too late.
Just one thing I wanted to add is that, and something I should have touched upon before, is the Victim Compensation Fund set up an amazing terminal extremis process. So you know anybody that got diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer and could be terminal, we can turn around an award for you in less than 2 weeks because of the process they put in place. We want to make sure the families are taken care of. We can avoid the health program altogether and go right to the Victim Compensation Fund. It's an amazing program, and it's an amazing program that offer these benefits, because when, God forbid, your cancer turns worse, like Michael was saying, melanoma or anything like that, the Victim Compensation Fund has programs for that. Also for financial expedite as well.
All right. Hillary, can you please, I know we had some questions that were submitted before we even did this today. Can we go ahead and ask us some questions?
We have received several. Is hypertension a covered illness?
No, it is not. But as Liam said earlier, no cancers had been linked as of 2013. And now we have 68 cancers. There are so many ongoing studies. The more people who go to the health program and report their illnesses, the better it is for the entire community, because eventually there will be statistical data so we can add things like hypertension, autoimmune diseases. So many of our clients have peripheral neuropathy, rheumatoid arthritis, way more than the average population. So please, just because something isn't covered doesn't mean you shouldn't apply to the health program.
Is this program only for people with existing health issues and pending claims?
For the responders, you can be absolutely healthy and you are entitled to an annual medical monitoring exam. And you should take advantage of that. For the survivors, you do have to feel that you're sick, but as a reminder, for any survivors out there, mental health conditions is covered as well. GERD, sleep apnea. So you may think, oh, I just have asthma. I don't really have a condition. Well, that's a covered condition that would be counted. So a responder was involved in the rescue, recovery, and cleanup operations. A survivor was an area worker who was, for the Pentagon, who worked in the Pentagon, and for in New York, it's the area workers, students, tourists who were in that area in that dust cloud at the time. So there is a difference between the survivors and responders for the health program, but the VCF considers them the same.
I was a first responder to the Pentagon on 9/11 and days following. I developed breast cancer with no history, and I was a non-smoker. Unfortunately, the city and the police department have no paycheck records or roll call records. My lieutenant, who has retired, is willing to testify that I was present. Am I wasting your time? I have the paperwork, but it asked for specific hours, and I do not know.
Okay, so you're not wasting your time at all. As we said earlier, all you need to do is have two people sign an affidavit attesting to the fact that you were there more than 4 hours during those 2 months that followed 9/11. So please call us. Yeah, and even if you only have one affidavit from the person who actually remembers you, you have the right to a hearing. So, and at that hearing, and it's a non-adversarial hearing with a hearing officer. I was at one in Washington last year, and my client testified. He had no witnesses at all, but he did have a lot of circumstantial evidence, which gave him credibility. He testified, and the hearing officer found him eligible. So please, breast cancer is after prostate cancer and skin cancer, it's the most common cancer. You are certainly going to be found eligible. Please contact us offline and we'll talk to you, and I'm sure we can help you.
I have VA health insurance already. Will the World Trade Center Health Program provide better coverage, more thorough coverage, or would it be redundant?
Very good question. And, like I was saying earlier, the health program is made up of healthcare professionals who are very specialized in treating the 9/11 community and understand the unique circumstances. So like Lee was saying before, when this community has, asthma, GERD, COPD, whatever it is, it oftentimes presents itself a little bit differently than the general population. And so oftentimes there is specific treatment that is needed. And so I do not think that it is redundant. And then also the second point is that you have to be certified. Your physical health condition has to be certified in the healthcare program if you want to file a victim compensation claim.
How do I locate a doctor that is related to this coverage in the state that I am living in?
So the healthcare program has a nationwide provider network, and they partner with a company called LHI. And LHI does not have a public list of their doctors that participate in the World Trade Center Health Program, but their promise and guarantee is that they can link you up with a healthcare provider within 50 mile radius of your home. So unfortunately, you would not be able to pre-look at that. You would have to apply to the World Trade Center Health Program, and they would get you in and link you up to a physician. And if you didn't like that doctor, you have a right as a member in the World Trade Center Health Program to switch providers. But all of that would be after you are actually in the program.
The DoD paid hazard pay to military personnel who were at the Pentagon on 9/11. Would it be difficult to access those pay records?
I wouldn't think difficult at all. You probably have to sign a HIPAA authorization and you'd get them. Again, those records are great evidence, but not sufficient. At the end of the day, they want sworn affidavits.
Is there some kind of go by or examples for the affidavit online?
Well, you can go to 911victims.org, and there's a link there that has our affidavit that is accepted, or you can just ask us and we'll email you the blank affidavit, and then you can just forward it to your colleagues, your friends, your coworkers. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Just, hit us with an email and we'll be happy to send it to you.
I spend 6 months in one state and 6 months in the other. Can I get medical treatment in both states?
The way the World Trade Center Health Program works is that they, put your home base somewhere. So you have to be, your home base is, in New York or in Florida, wherever you live. And that's where you see the doctors for your annual medical visit. But you have a right to, like I said, annually to switch providers should you move. But also the program does on a case-by-case basis coordinate care across state lines.
Why does it take 2 years to get an award?
So every claim is different and it depends. We say 2 years to set expectations, but it all depends on whether or not you're certified. Where are you in the program? Sometimes it takes people long to get presence documents together, but we submit your claim for the Victim Compensation Fund, as well as register you with the World Trade Center Health Program. But again, with the Victim Compensation Fund, times can be different depending on your individual situation. So we say 2 years. A lot of times I see claims being done in 6 months to a year, a little over a year, but it depends. With COVID and with us trying to get the fund extended last year, it backed up a lot of claims because they had to do 50% cuts when everybody thought that the fund was going to end in December of 2020. Thank God it was extended till 2090. But it's not like a regular personal injury claim that can take 4 to 5 years. And then once you get a settlement, that's it. With the Victim Compensation Fund, 2 years is nothing compared to that, but they are getting better. And that's why we want everybody, especially everybody who's a first responder, into the health program. So you're already ahead of the game and there is no lag for waiting for an appointment. But, we want to make sure that you're starting this process today.
Yeah, so we were on a panel earlier today with the Victim Compensation Fund Special Master, and she has pledged to the 9/11 community to shorten that time, and she's hoping to get it to 1 year.
How is compensation determined? Are there set compensations for each illness, or is it like a sliding scale that depends on the extent of your illness?
So it's all based on severity. So you're going to have 2 people with asthma. You can get 2 totally different awards because one person had surgeries, ER visits, and the other person uses a nasal rinse once a year. So the severity does depend on individual circumstances. If you have somebody that is certified for GERD, sleep apnea, upper respiratory disease, they don't award per condition, the Victim Compensation Fund. You're not going to see it broken down. They look at the totality. They look at the severity altogether. And the best part about the Victim Compensation Fund is that if you get an award for asthma while your asthma is mild, and then 5 years from now, it gets worse and worse and worse until you have the records to support your severity, we can amend your claim for an increased award.
We had a case this morning where a guy who we got $20,000 for his mild asthma, he called to tell me he had just gotten out of the hospital. He spent 30 days on a ventilator after being diagnosed with COVID, and then 60 more days in the hospital. His family wasn't even allowed to visit him. He was pronounced dead twice. I mean, this is horrifying stuff. He's now, knock wood, doing great. He's back at home, and we are now amending his claim because he certainly wouldn't have had the severe reaction to COVID if he hadn't had the underlying asthma. We're going to try to raise him from $20,000 to the maximum of $90,000 for non-cancerous conditions. So they're very reasonable as far as letting you always produce more and more evidence. Dom, and can you just speak for a moment about dependence and how that might impact a Victim Compensation Fund award in a wrongful death claim?
Sure. When I went through the different categories of damages, actually, I didn't mention, thank you for reminding me, that one of the categories of damages is a dependence award, meaning that if there's a spouse or another member of the family who qualify as a dependent on under the Internal Revenue Code, that person themselves that person themselves is entitled to an award of $100,000. Each dependent, each spouse and each dependent is entitled to a separate $100,000 award as part of a deceased claim award.
It has been a pleasure to speak to you today. It is a privilege to represent the 9/11 community in general and Pentagon responders in particular. We are here for you. It is a pleasure to talk to you.